So I wanted to make a video on what I believe to be one of the best budget gimbals that you can buy today. And I'm talking about the Moza Air. Now, not to be confused with the Moza Air 2, which recently just came out. This is the original Moza Air gimbal, and I believe if you're somebody who is looking to upgrade to a gimbal for the very first time, or maybe you're somebody who is on a budget and you spent all of your money on your camera, your lens, or your lighting, or your audio, but you still want to invest into something that's going to help stabilize your footage, I think the Moza Air might be for you. So earlier today, my wife and I, we went out on a little hike in the morning and just did some test footage and shooting with this gimbal. So what I'm about to show you are 3 clips. One of them is going to be me using the gimbal with my A7 III with the IBIS turned off. The next clip is going to be with the IBIS turned on. The third clip is going to be with that in-body stabilization turned on, plus some added warp stabilizer in post, just giving you 3 different options to choose from and to show you what you can get from the Moza Air. So let's check it out. Now I want to keep this video as short as I possibly can, so I'm just going to roll through this review and just give you a list of pros and cons. I want to give you cons too because I want to just be honest with you and let you know what to expect if you're considering making this purchase. So let's go through the pros first. The number one thing for me is the price. It comes in right at about $400. I've seen it as low as $350 on some sites, and then of course you can buy it used for much cheaper than that. But that's a pretty good deal. For me, when I bought it a little bit over a year ago, I bought it for about $600. And so to see the price drop by $200 in about a year, that's a really good sign. Now for me, I would invest the money, and I would advise you to, if you can, to invest the extra money into getting the dual handle grip. To me, there is nothing better, there's nothing more natural than shooting a gimbal using the dual handles. Now that's not to say that you can't use it shooting it with the pistol grip method. It's just a lot easier, in my opinion, to have your hands on, the dual handles. The next thing I really like about this is how small it is. Now that might be a con for you if you're somebody who wants a really big setup. I think whenever you're out in public, and for me, when I'm shooting with like the Ronin S and I got a big old camera on it and whatnot, it just brings a lot of attention to me, which I don't like that. I kind of just want to shoot what I want to shoot and kind of go unnoticed for the most part. With this gimbal, if you take the tripod stand off of the bottom and you take the dual handles off, if you have those, you have a really small footprint when using the gimbal. And to me, that's awesome. It almost kind of looks like the size of a phone gimbal, to be honest with you. And I think that just draws a lot less of attention to you if that's something that you're concerned with. Next, I just love how easy it is to use. Right away, right out of the box, you're instantly going to be able to get better footage than you were ever able to before. Now, to show you just how easy it is to use, I had my wife shoot with it earlier today. And she's an amazing photographer, but she's not a videographer. She doesn't have a lot of experience shooting video. And so I wanted her to use it and kind of do the whole ninja walk thing just to show you, if you've never used one before, like my wife, you can still do it very easily. Now I'll use this as a segue to kind of start talking about some of the negative things that I don't like about it. Now, with it being, smaller and lighter and kind of more convenient to use in that way, that also goes to a downside as well, because to be honest, the motors are just not quite as strong. And I notice it especially because I shoot with the Ronin S most of the time nowadays, which that thing is a beast. It can handle any camera that I throw at it, whereas the Moza Air, you gotta be careful, you gotta be intentional with what you're putting on it. For me, I shot with the A7 III, no problem. Put a smaller lens on the front, and that payload, the gimbal was able to handle it, no problem at all. But the moment I started to try to add heavier things like a battery grip and a big lens and an external monitor, that's when the gimbal started to have problems with it. And when I put a lot of that stuff, like a microphone, on the top of the camera, it became so top heavy that I actually couldn't balance it at all. So just know, if you have a big camera like 1DX, or if you shoot with a battery grip a lot of the time, you might just want to be intentional on what lens, on what accessories you are using to make sure that you're not putting too much stress on the motors. Now, of course, with a cheaper gimbal like this one, the reason it's able to be so inexpensive is that it does lack in some of the build quality. Not by much, but again, when you compare it to some of the newer gimbals out there today, like the Zhiyun Crane 2 or the Moza Air 2 for that matter, yeah, you can definitely tell instantly the build quality is much better on the new gimbals. That's not to say that the Moza Air 1 is bad, it has bad build quality. It's just not the same as the newer ones. But with that being said, I've shot with this in some pretty crazy weather, actually like earlier today in the snow, but I've shot with it in rain, in wind, in really all sorts of different conditions, and it still works perfectly fine today. And probably my biggest pet peeve with this gimbal is that when I put it in the underslung mode, is that what it's underslung? The inverted mode like this, the gimbal, the motors in it definitely have a little bit of a hard time staying in that mode for a long period of time. So I would advise, if you do buy this thing, if you own it and you're shooting in that underslung mode, don't do that for extended periods of time. Get your shot and then bring it back up to normal, because the motors definitely start vibrating a little more rapidly than they normally do. And again, I think that's just part of having a inexpensive gimbal, a smaller gimbal, and something that just lacks a little bit in the build quality. So now that we talked about the pros and the cons, and you've seen plenty of footage of this gimbal in use, let's talk about who this would be for. I've mentioned to it earlier in the video, but I think if this is your first gimbal, this is a great option for you. Or if you're somebody who's just on a budget, whatever your life circumstances, if you just don't have enough money to upgrade to the higher end gimbals, then get one of these. There is nothing wrong with this whatsoever. I obviously am able to nitpick at it because I compare it to one of the nicer, more expensive models out there. But if this is the only option that you have is to get the Moza Air, then I don't think you can go wrong with it. I think at the end of the day, you gotta get something that makes sense for you. Don't compare yourself or don't compare your gear to what you see out there on the internet. Make a smart decision, buy something that you can afford, and then use the crap out of it until you can't use it anymore. And then once you've been able to save up some money, maybe you can upgrade to something, bigger and better down the road. But there's nothing to, be embarrassed about or anything like that if you use this. I used this for well over a year, and it got me a lot of jobs. It got me the full-time videographer job that I have today. And so with kind of all that being said, if you're looking for something that's affordable and something that's going to get you great results right out of the box, then I think this might be the option for you. So there you have it, the Moza Air. It's not the latest and greatest model out there, but it definitely gets the job done, especially if you're somebody on a budget. I'll leave a link down in my description just to show you where you can pick one of these up. So anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope it helped you in some way, in any way whatsoever. If it did, make sure to like this video, leave a comment down below, and if you're not subscribed already, definitely do so. It always helps the channel grow, and I appreciate any of the support that I can get from you guys. So yeah, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one.